On May 5th, 1981, three Bonanno capos put on their good suits and drove to a Brooklyn social club for a peace meeting. The code said you come to a sit-down, unarmed, so all three did. One of them was Sonny Red Indelicato, and before he left the house, he told his son that if he wasn't back, there was a list of men to kill. He knew exactly what kind of room he was walking into. He went in anyway. What he did not know was who had already been promised his chair. If you've seen Donnie Brasco, you've already met Sonny Red. You just don't remember him. He's the older man in the background of a scene or two, a handful of lines, played by an actor named Robert Miano, and the film treats him the way the mob treated him, as a loose end. Al Pacino and Johnny Depp carry the movie. Sonny Red is a name somebody mutters right before somebody else gets killed. That's the version millions of people walked out of the theater with, and it's got the whole thing upside down. The real Alphonse Indelicato wasn't the prey in this story. He was the man loading the guns to wipe out everybody else. So let's start with who he actually was, because the movie couldn't be bothered. He got the name Sonny Red from a pair of red cowboy boots he liked to wear, and the boots were the tame part of the outfit. He dressed loud in bright, garish clothes, a maid Capo who looked like a man daring you to stare. His arms were covered in faded tattoos from his younger days. People who knew him kept reaching for the same handful of words: charismatic and opinionated, dangerous and ruthless, all at once. That's not a background heavy. That's a lead the movie declined to cast. And he had a body on his record before Joe Pistone had finished grade school. The day after Christmas, 1951, Indelicato was in a social club when the shooting started. One man dead, one man wounded, and the wounded one lived long enough to point at him. Murder and attempted murder. 12 years in a state prison. He served almost all of it and came out in 1966 on lifetime parole, because by then the government already knew exactly what he was into, and it was narcotics. So when Donnie Brasco shows you a nervous old man at a table, understand what you're actually looking at: a convicted killer who'd already done a full stretch upstate before most of the people in that film had a driver's license. I'd argue the movie did him a worse disservice than the men who killed him. They only took his life. The film took the fact that he was terrifying. By 1980, Sonny Red wasn't a soldier taking orders. He was a cap regime anchoring a block of capos under him, each one running 6 to 12 of his own men. Add that up, and you get a faction big enough to do something no sane wise guy says out loud: take the whole family. To understand why he thought he could, you have to go back to the cigar. On a hot July day in 1979, three masked men walked into a Brooklyn restaurant and shot Carmine Galante dead with his cigar still clenched in his teeth. Galante had been running the Bonanno family like it was his personal heroin franchise, refusing to share, and the commission finally decided he had to go. One of the three gunmen was a young Bonanno soldier named Anthony Indelicato. Bruno, they called him, Sonny Red's son. Bruno's reward for that morning's work was a Capo's button handed to him by the acting boss, Philip Rastelli. So now you've got a father who's a made captain and a son who just killed for the family and got promoted for it. And above both of them, a throne nobody was really sitting in, because Rastelli, the man supposed to be running things, was an absentee boss. In and out of prison, ruling on paper, present in name only, and an absentee boss is an invitation. Sonny Red read it the way a hungry man reads a menu, along with two other capos, Dominic Trinchera, a giant of a man they called Big Trin, and Philip Giaccone, Phil Lucky. He started building. And when Joe Massino, on the loyalist side, got word of what they were building, it wasn't politicking or grumbling that reached him. It was machine guns. The three capos were stockpiling machine guns to kill the Rastelli loyalists and seize complete control of the family. Here's the inversion the movie never even hints at. The man Donnie Brasco frames as a target, the shadow the family wanted gone, was in reality the one planning the bigger massacre. He wasn't waiting to be hunted. He was days, maybe weeks, from hunting first. If you ask me, that's the most honest thing in this entire story. There were no good guys at that table. There was only a slower gun and a faster one, and the whole war came down to which faction pulled the trigger before the other could. On the loyalist side stood the men the movie actually made famous: Dominic Napolitano, Sonny Black, a capo with a rooftop full of pigeons, and though he had no idea, a federal agent standing inside his crew. That agent was Joe Pistone, the man they knew as Donnie Brasco. His mentor was a soldier named Lefty Ruggiero, the Al Pacino part. So while Sonny Red counted his capos and stacked his guns, the FBI was quietly recording the exact family he was trying to take over from the inside. Two clocks running at once, and neither side had any idea the other one existed. And the movie takes its own liberties with every one of them. Pistone himself put the film at about 85% accurate and 15% dressed up for the screen, and it's the 15% that matters here. Donnie Brasco leaves you thinking Lefty is the one who pays for letting an agent into the family. He wasn't. Lefty was arrested, did his time, and died of cancer years later. In a bed, it was Sonny Black who paid, and we'll get to exactly how. There's even a scene where Donnie slaps his own wife that Pistone says flatly never happened, and he went ballistic when he watched it. And while the film was rearranging the truth to fit its runtime, the man whose war this actually was had a son coming apart at the worst possible moment. Bruno Indelicato was a stone killer with a serious cocaine habit, and in the exact stretch where his father needed him sharpest, he was violent, paranoid, and impossible to rely on. Sonny Red was betting the entire family on a bloodline that was chemically unraveling in front of him. The man who lit the fuse was Massino, and he wasn't a hothead. That's what made him lethal. When he learned the three capos were arming up, he didn't move on his own. He took it upstairs. He went to Paul Castellano, boss of the Gambino family and head of the commission, and to Carmine Persico of the Colombos, and he laid out the plot. They told him to act immediately. So when people call the three capos hit a murder, they're underselling it. It was a corporate decision signed off at the very top of the American mob. Sonny Red was already a dead man. He just hadn't been served the papers yet. And if the setup alone is making the movie feel small, stay with me, because the part everyone gets wrong is still coming. The ambush, the signal, and the one decision that pulled the most famous undercover agent in mob history out for good. Subscribe if you want more of these, and let's get into the room. The invitation went out for a peace meeting, May 5th, 1981. Massino asked the three capos to sit down and work things out, and this is where the code itself turned into a weapon. The rules of a sit-down say you come unarmed. It's a gesture of trust, the entire point of a peace meeting, and all three men honored it. And they walked into a social club in Brooklyn with nothing on them exactly as tradition demanded, which is exactly how the trap was built. The most dangerous faction in the family disarmed itself at the door because the etiquette required it. Sonny Red went in himself. He could have sent Bruno. According to trial testimony, he told another man, Frank Lino, that they were walking into something dangerous, and he chose to attend personally rather than send his son. I think that's the one genuinely human thing in this whole grim business. He'd built a war on the backs of other people, and when the bill looked like it might come due, he paid it himself and kept his kid out of the room. Before he left the house, he handed Bruno the other half of that decision, a list. If he didn't come back, Bruno was to kill everybody in the Zips, Joe Massino and Sonny Black. He walked in knowing, and he left instructions for the revenge. Waiting in a back room were 4 masked men: Sal Vitale, Massino's own brother-in-law, Vito Rizzuto, down from Canada, a couple of others. The signal man was Gerlando Shashia, George from Canada, and here's the professionalism that should sit worse with you than the guns did. There was no shout, no dramatic order. Calm as anything, he slowly ran his fingers through his silver hair. That was the go. The closet opened, and Big Trin didn't die quietly. Frank Lino's account is about as plain as it gets. When they came in with the shotguns, Trinchera charged them, made a loud noise, and they shot him, and he died right there. Massino would later testify that Trinchera wouldn't go down until a shotgun blast finally finished him. A man that size, unarmed, running straight at shotguns because it was the only thing left to do. Sonny Red went last. Vitale's sworn words carry it. He said George reached into the back of his waistband, pulled a gun, and shot Sonny Red on the left side of the head, and by then it was all over. Massino testified he was the one holding Indelicato's leg when it happened. 54 years old, a dozen years in a state prison behind him, a faction and a hit list to his name, and it ended with a bullet behind the ear in a back room while the man who ordered it held him still. Now here's the twist. The movie is physically incapable of telling you, because the film ends before any of it happens. Killing Sonny Red's faction didn't close the war. It set off the exact chain of events that blew up the FBI's operation. With the 3 capos gone, Sonny Black Napolitano needed Bruno Indelicato dead before Bruno could ever act on his father's list. So he handed the contract to kill Bruno to Lefty Ruggiero and to his own reliable up-and-comer, Donnie Brasco, except Donnie Brasco was Joe Pistone. A federal agent had just been ordered to commit a murder. On July 26, 1981, the Bureau decided it was too dangerous to continue and pulled Pistone out. The arrangement is almost too clean to be real. The single most damaging infiltration in the history of the American Mafia. More than 200 indictments, more than 100 convictions. The operation they built an Al Pacino movie around ended not because somebody got made, but because Sonny Red's private war generated a hit that landed on the wrong man's desk. The war he started is the reason Donnie Brasco had to stop, and he never knew it. He was weeks dead by the time it happened. The family collected on Napolitano next. When the agents finally told Sonny Black that his trusted protege had been a Fed the whole time, he understood the math immediately. Before he left for the meeting he wouldn't come back from, he stripped off his valuables and handed them to a bartender along with his keys so somebody would go up and feed his pigeons. Then he walked into a basement and got shot, and they cut his hands off. The old message for the man who lets an outsider inside. The mob put $500,000 on Pistone's head, and then Castellano thought better of it and called it off, reasoning that killing a federal agent would attract too much attention. Of all the cold calculations in this story, that's the one the movie should have ended on. A man's life talked down to a nuisance not worth the paperwork. For a while it looked like Sonny Red had vanished the way the mob prefers, without a trace. He didn't. Weeks after the murder, his body was pulled from a shallow grave in a vacant lot. For years, the story went that kids playing there stumbled on the body, but that version is a cover story, and the truth fits this whole thing better than the myth does. The Gotti crew that buried the three capos as a favor to Massino included a man named Willie Boy Johnson, and Johnson had been feeding the FBI for the better part of 2 decades. He's the one who told the cops where to dig. So the war, Sonny Red started to take over a family that already had a federal agent inside. It was undone in part by a second informant standing right beside his grave. Nobody in that room knew about either one. He spent a whole career watching for a rat and never saw the two that mattered. The other two stayed lost for 23 years. The spot where they'd been dumped, a stretch of vacant lots that everyone called the Hole, was a known mob graveyard, and it kept it secret until 2004, when investigators spent weeks digging it up. They pulled out dozens of bones along with the personal effects that finally let them name the dead. That December, the medical examiner finally put the right names to Big Trin and Phil Lucky, a quarter century late, and the man who built the whole thing, the one who carried the plot to the commission and held Sonny Red's leg while Sciascia fired. In 2004, a jury convicted Massino of those 3 murders and 4 more, and he took a life sentence. Then he did the thing no sitting New York boss had ever done. He flipped. The last Don, the only one of the 5 family's bosses who'd stayed out of prison through the 1990s, sat down in a witness chair and gave up his own family to save himself from a death sentence. What gets me is the symmetry of it. The man who turned the rules of a sit down into a murder weapon, who used the code that says you arrive unarmed to disarm 3 men and kill them, ended his own story by breaking the single oldest rule the whole thing runs on. He built a trap out of the mob's etiquette, and then he informed on everybody who was still standing. So when Donnie Brasco shows you Sonny Red as a footnote, a name, an old man at a table waiting to become a body, remember that you're watching the mob's version of him, not the truth. The truth is he was the most dangerous man in that family that year. He was the one with the guns and the plan and the hit list ready to go. And the war he was so certain he'd win is the exact thing that killed him, exposed the family, and pulled the most famous undercover agent in mafia history back into the daylight. The movie made him small, so the story would fit inside 2 hours. History doesn't have that problem. Here's the question I keep landing on. If Sonny Red had moved first, if his faction had opened that closet instead of walking past it, does the FBI ever get its clean ending, or does Donnie Brasco just quietly become one more set of bones in the hole? We'll never know, because he trusted a peace meeting. If you want more stories about the men the movies turned into extras, subscribe, and I'll have another one for you next week.